Did you know that offset accounts are one of the most misunderstood products in the mortgage industry in Australia? And that means that every banker I've ever met, about half of all the brokers I've met, and definitely ChatGPT don't actually know what offset accounts are for, and routinely misadvise people on when to get them and what to do with them. I'm going to try and break it down. There's going to be a bit of detail. We'll try and go into some graphics to make it all make sense. But let's start with level one understanding. Level one understanding is pretty simple. And to reference this, I'm going to compare it to a standard loan. Now, with a standard loan, let's say you had a loan of $500,000, you pay it down to $400,000, the bank charges you interest on what you owe, which is $400,000. That's how a home loan works. Now, with an offset account, what you can have is a home loan, which sits at $500,000, and you can have $100,000 in the offset account, and the bank will technically add the two numbers together because one's negative and one's positive. But what they'll say, 100,000, 500,000, they'll charge you interest on 400,000 as if you'd paid off the 100,000. If you ask ChatGPT, they will tell you this, and therefore the scenario where it works in the explanation is if you've got a mortgage and you've got a savings account with $100,000 in it, you're better off moving that savings into the mortgage or into the offset account, except they always describe it as into the offset account being a better place to keep your savings, and somehow forget that having separate savings is a really good idea. It worked for most people when we were trying to save up to buy a house, and having it separate can be really good. Putting that in an offset account, brilliant, it saves you money, but is it now kept separate? Because most offset accounts have a debit card and are fully transactional, which means now instead of your savings being hard to get at, they're really easy to get at. And that's actually portrayed as an advantage of an offset account, when in fact it is the biggest disadvantage. And that's simply because when we compare people that get a simple loan and pay it down, let's say from $500,000 to $400,000, they're more likely to hit that target of $400,000. Whereas if instead of that they took an offset account and tried to build it up to $100,000, they're far more likely to have spent that money along the way and not saved up the $100,000. Because of the disadvantage of the offset account, you never ever want to link a debit or credit card to it. You have to treat it like your savings, which is somewhere special that we hide money away. Let's put that aside for 1 minute. If I could just pay $100,000 off the loan or have the $100,000 in the offset account, why would I want the $100,000 in the offset account instead of against the loan? The argument put forward by ChatGPT and most bankers is that you have easy access to that money if you want to use it for something else or for emergencies. Except that almost every home loan in Australia with a variable rate, if you pay extra against the home loan, you can redraw that electronically anyway. So it actually, you've got as much access. The only difference between the two is that the loan account doesn't have a debit card or a credit card, whereas the offset does, which of course is a big disadvantage of an offset account. So then why do these things exist? And when you ask why they exist, even to ChatGPT, they struggle, and so do bankers. To explain it better, let me explain a scenario, and I'm going to deliberately code these as ABC. So let's take the first scenario. So Alex decides to buy a little apartment, a one-bedroom apartment, as a place to live in as a first home, with the intention of living in it for a while, taking advantage of first home buyer benefits, but knowing that in the future, Alex wants to have a partner and have children, and that maybe they'll upgrade to a house. And at that point in time, maybe the unit could be used as an investment property. Now, in that use case, having an offset versus redraw is dramatically different. And the reason for that is because of tax. So if Alex had a $500,000 loan, paid it down to $400,000, and then wanted to upgrade to a new place, the bank would let them take the $100,000 from the loan account, but the tax office would now say that the loan for the unit is a $400,000 loan, and they would ask, why did you take the extra $100,000? To which Alex would say, well, I used that $100,000 to buy a place to live in. Now that is a non-deductible purpose, and so now the bank is charging interest on $500, but the ATO says that you can only count interest on $400,000, so some of that debt is now non-deductible. This is where the offset's a clear winner. If Alex had $500,000 in a loan account and $100,000 in the offset account, use that to buy the home to live in, then the $500,000 remains deductible, or the interest charged on that. So in Alex's case, the offset account is a winner because it protects the future deductibility of that property as an investment, or when it becomes an investment. So in Alex's case, offset account is good, but again, providing Alex does not have debit or credit card linked to the offset account, otherwise Alex simply won't save that much money, because we know that everyone with an offset account spends more. The people will tell you they don't. They're lying, and I'll show you how in a little while and why it's absolutely pointless to use the transactional facilities, but we'll come back to that, as I said. Now, then let's take, in Ben's case, Ben can't really afford a place that he wants to live in. Living in Sydney, he decides to buy an investment property interstate, and so Ben has an investment mortgage. In Ben's case, with an investment mortgage, having the offset again gives the same benefit as it does to Alex. In other words, Ben shouldn't be paying down the investment property mortgage, because every time you pay down the mortgage, it permanently reduces your tax deductible loan. So instead, Ben can build up an offset account and eventually use that to buy a place to live in, or to buy a car, or to do anything for personal purposes. So Ben's case again, offset account, really, really good idea. Now, let's take Kara's case. Now, in Kara's case, Kara and a partner buy a long-term family home to live in, and they now think that an offset account is a good idea because someone told them they had one, and they had one before. And what they do is they build up $100,000 in the offset account, and they've still got a $500,000 loan in this example. Probably it's more if it's a house, but let's just keep the numbers simple. But Kara then thinks, well, maybe instead of just paying the mortgage off or building up the offset account, I'm going to either invest in another property or invest in shares. And so Kara thinks, oh, I can take my $100,000 and invest it into shares or invest it in property. The problem again is a tax problem. You see, the ATO thinks that the $500,000 is all used for the home, because that's what the loan was taken out for. That is a non-deductible purpose. And whereas if you take the $100,000 out of the offset account, the ATO view the offset account as a non-interest bearing account. And so now Kara has taken her personal savings, used those to invest in property or shares, and therefore cannot claim a deduction on any part of the $500,000 loan. And the offset account was a terrible idea. However, had Kara paid $100,000 off the loan and had a $400,000 loan, and then drew the $100,000 out of the loan and used that to invest in property and shares, then that portion of the loan, or the interest on that portion of the loan, would be tax deductible to that other investment. So now we can see that in Kara's case, the offset is the wrong tool and getting redraw is a better tool. Now, we're up to Denise. Denise's case is quite similar to Kara's, but she decides that what she's going to do is she's got a $500,000 mortgage. She's paid it down to $400,000, and then she's going to get a new loan for $200,000 secured by a home that she's then going to use for investment purposes. Now, this one is super complicated, and you must always talk to your accountant about tax deductibility, but this one is the worst example of that. Let's explore some of the absolute rubbish that's on the internet about offset accounts. So it's based on logic, but the logic is very, very flawed because it doesn't work for human beings. Let me explain. So here's the logic. Every dollar in the offset account is saving you interest from your loan. So theoretically, the more dollars you have in the offset account, the less interest you're being charged on the loan. Up to this point, everyone's in agreement. So now the logic goes, well, why not put your entire pay into the offset account, then get a credit card linked to the offset account so you get 55 days interest free on the credit card, and therefore you get to benefit of using the bank's money for free and them not charging you interest on it. So that's the logic. And in principle, it sounds like it makes sense until you do the maths. So here's an example of the maths. So let's say your normal monthly spending is $5,000 for the month. It's probably quite a lot to be putting on a credit card, but let's keep it simple. It's $5,000 for the month. Now, in the first month, you basically put everything on credit card and spend nothing. In the second month, you've got the $5,000 credit card bill and you have to pay that credit card bill. So in the second month, your outgoing is $5,000, just as it would be if you actually spent your own money. Whereas if you used your own money, you spend $5,000 in month 1, $5,000 in month 2, $5,000 in month 3. When you use a credit card, you spend nothing in month 1, $5,000 in month 2, $5,000 and so on. And people say, oh, I never pay interest on my credit card, so therefore I'm winning. Let me explain by how much you're winning, and this is where it becomes a bit shocking. So at current interest rates in Australia, which are about, I'm going to call it 5%, or let's call it 5.5% to be safe, okay? At 5.5% interest on $5,000, that amounts to $275 interest saving for the year, okay? So if you put everything on credit card all year long, by having this money working for you, you're going to save a maximum of $275. Now, $275 translates to $23 a month. So now let's think about this for a second. What's the probability of you putting everything on the credit card, whether you want Uber Eats or a snack, or doing everything on a credit card? What's the probability that you can stay within $23 of what your budget would be if you set aside money for spending separately to where you have your mortgage? What's the probability you could be within $23 of a $5,000 bill? Because that's what you need to be in order to bank that $275. Now, everyone have asked this question and as soon as you think about it, you go, some people might argue, oh, but I'd spend the same on debit card. And I'd go, okay, well, if that's the case, obviously you haven't read my book, Spending Fast and Slow, because you wouldn't have debit card access to the whole $5,000 at once. You would have access to some of it each week and some of it for the month. And when you have access to it each week, you spend significantly less than someone with a credit card. And even if you just do that simple test, who's going to spend money faster? Imagine we're doing this in cash, right? And I give one person $5,000 for the month, and I give the other person $1,250 for the week, which in a 4-week month is $5,000. Who's going to go through the money quickest, and who's going to have money left at the end of the month? So just think about it. One person's got in cash, $5,000 in cash carried on them. They can spend money willy-nilly on whatever they want. Who's going to run out of money first? The person with the $5,000 for the month, or the person who gets $1,250 a month? This has actually been done in studies, and every single time, not one person has money left over when they take it monthly. They all spend you spend it more quickly. And when you spend it more quickly, then you have to spend a bit of money in that last week of the month. And so you've spent the $5,000 typically in 3 weeks. And in the 4th week, you're kind of going overdrawn or spending more than you would have done. Whereas the person who had the cash every week realized that once the cash is gone, it's gone. By the way, $1,250 a week is way too much to spend. To having cash to spend, don't do it that way. Always take way less. But what that means is that people that say that you're going to spend the same, whether you use a credit card or a debit card, completely wrong, firstly. Lots of studies have proven this. Unless you have debit card access to an enormous amount of money, like a debit card linked to your offset account. And secondly, even if you were absolutely perfect, you were You're either a robot or you're such a tight ass. And they've even done studies on tight asses, by the way, and even the tight asses overspend. They just do it by buying things when they're on sale. But let's imagine you're the world's biggest tight ass. You don't spend a cent. The best case scenario, you're going to save $275 by having a credit card linked to your offset account. Probably to get the offset account, it costs you an annual fee of $395. It's almost like the bank knows that they need to make their money back somewhere. Funny that. So in reality, nobody banks the savings. Same for the debit card. The debit card is actually much more worse and more complicated, but even the credit card works in the same way, because when you pay down a loan, the loan naturally goes down. And that feels like it's a normal thing to do. And then pulling money back out of the loan feels like it's a thing you shouldn't be doing. It feels a bit harder, and people don't tend to do it as much as when it's in an offset account. But let's imagine you were spending $5,000 a month, but you had $6,000 available after paying the normal mortgage payment. And so you can save $1,000 a month. So in the first month, you do a really good job and you save that $1,000 and your offset account's got $1,000. Second month, your offset account's got $2,000 in it. Third month, it's got $3,000 in it, and you're thinking, I'm doing a great job. But after a while, we kind of forget what we're doing. We don't look at our bank account so often. We carry on spending, and maybe we got it to $5,000, $10,000, or whatever the figure might be, where we thought there was a good amount in the offset account. And then as long as we've got that good amount in the offset account, then anything we spend feels like we're not doing too badly. As long as we've still got, let's call that good amount $20,000. The offset account's got $20,000 in it, and then we spend. We had a few bad months or whatever. We look back at our offset account, it's still got $20,000 in it. We can't have been doing a bad job. But we were supposed to be saving $1,000 a month, but we lost track of that $1,000 a month. So now, is it this month supposed to be $21,000 or $23,000 or $25,000? It's too complicated. If that extra $1,000 was going into the mortgage would keep going down, and the offset account would, or you wouldn't have an offset account. The mortgage would keep going down, and you'd be fine. You'd be just living on the $5,000 or whatever you were spending was for the month. When it runs out, you know that you've got a problem, and if you need to dip it into the offset account, in the loan account, you know that you're doing the wrong thing. You know that you're overspending. You're never going to know that with a transactional offset account. So there's a lot of detail in there. The full version is there for anyone to watch. But the summary is, an offset account is a tax planning tool. It works well for people like Alex buying a first home, which could be an investment in the future. It works really well for Ben, where they're buying an investment property as their first home and they want somewhere to keep savings without ruining the tax deductibility of the loan. It works terribly for Cara, who is just trying to pay off a home and get ahead and might want to invest in the future. And it works terribly as well for Denise if she wants to extract equity from a home and start using it for investment and drawing funds from the loan account. So depending on where you sit on that matrix, then you'll either be a good idea or a bad idea. But whatever the case, never ever link a debit or credit card to an offset account. Now, if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and we will be making more in-depth dives into how things really work. Because unfortunately, ChatGPT and most bankers, they don't know, and they haven't lived lives the way old grey-haired men like me have.